Hello there, everyone. How are you today? Thanks for joining me. Pleasure to have your company. Good morning. My name's Colin. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome for the first time if this is your first visit. I'm one of the teachers and OET experts for B2 language, and today I'll be guiding you through writing for medicine. If you want to communicate with me, please do so on Zoom through the chat box rather than Q&A, and I'll be very happy to answer your questions, but also see whatever submissions you care to share with me as the class progresses. Before we get started, I remind you that we have a voucher code at the moment. Better Together 15 will get you $15 US off the upgrade or package of your choice. Definitely worth taking advantage of. It's good value. Does this class for now? Sorry? No. This class is well planned, well in advance. I'm not quite sure what the question is, though. Yes, no, here we are. All right, thanks for your question. But yes, no, don't worry, all the classes are probably planned. So 15 gets you $15 off the upgrade or package of your choice. When you're at E2 language, we do offer feedback on written submissions, things that you send to us through the platform, which we're very happy to analyze and comment on and report back to you about. Takes a day or two, but definitely worth doing. I know because pretty much everyone's in isolation now, we provide that service as any responsible teacher would. And we also, speaking of teachers, offer tutorials, one-on-one tutorials through Zoom, where you get to focus on one or two areas of the test that are of particular concern or interest to you, and they're very intense but really very, very good, as are the mini mock tests. Mini mock tests last for okay, Alice, let me just address that. The new scheduled time is starting on Monday, so I'm sorry if it's said 10 o'clock in local time for you. It should be from Monday, I think, unless I've misunderstood. No, I haven't. It's from Monday. So as of Monday, these classes will start an hour earlier. It's currently 8 AM in Melbourne. We'll be starting at 7 AM in Melbourne. So instead of 11 PM in the UK, it will be 10 PM in the UK. Okay, sorry, that was the misunderstanding. So as of Monday, my time, so Sunday in the UK, that's the new time. Anyway, mini mock test, returning to what I was saying. Mini mock test done entirely online. If you've never done the OET before, it's particularly useful. But if you have done it before and you're feeling a bit nervous and you want to check, see how you're going, do the mini mock test. Covers every aspect of the test, including a speaking role play done over Zoom as well. Okay, in today's class then we will test your English with a quiz. We will learn a method for completing the writing task. We will analyze that task. We will choose from the relevant case notes. We'll plan out your writing. We will write today the other details paragraph. We'll then look at a model letter, check the criteria again, and then finish the whole thing off with a little quiz. So have a pen and paper handy, such as you will have on the day of the test. You'll find it most useful to have this. And we're going to do a quiz in a moment, but before we do, let's just revisit those verb tenses. There are 12 in the English language. We use them all, we genuinely do. There aren't some that we leave for a rainy day or some which were used by Shakespeare, but we never use anymore. These 12 are all used. It's the top 5 are the most common. The present simple. Mr. Lin urgently requires your expert assistance. The present continuous. Ms. Adams is currently receiving. The present perfect. Miss Smith has been treated with cold compression therapy. The present perfect continuous. Mrs. Tran has been undertaking. The past simple. Mr. Jones was admitted to St. Andrews 2 weeks after his operation. Okay, so we do use the other 7. It's just that those top 5 are the most common. Here's a quiz for you to do. You've got 60 seconds to complete these 4 sentences, and go ahead and share your thoughts in the chat box with me. See you in a minute. Thanks very much. Let's have a look then. When a post-operative dressing is no longer serving its purpose or is falling off, the dressing must be applied immediately. There you've got the passive structure. Number 2, there should be no argument over the number of times a patient who requires a full course of tetanus vaccine must be vaccinated. Number 3, Mrs. Brown needs to restore, full infinitive, needs to restore power to those muscles affected by the inflammation, but our priority is to get her posture and alignment right first. And number 4, on the rare occasions I take penicillin, I come out in terrible hives, but I don't have any other allergies. Good for me. Cool, let's take an overview then of the writing. The writing test requires you to read and analyze the task, to read and analyze the case notes, and then to write a letter of referral, of discharge or transfer. Old tests, and I'm talking at least a couple of years old or older, of the OET used to have different kinds of letters. They don't exist anymore. So I know people like to use and share material on social media. If you come across anything that's not a referral, a discharge or transfer letter, throw it in the bin, virtual or otherwise. The writing time of 45 minutes is divided into 2 distinct sections. The reading time of 5 minutes and the 40 minutes of writing time. Please treat the reading time of 5 minutes as a reading comprehension moment. That's where you're literally reading and comprehending the notes, demonstrating your ability to distinguish what is relevant and not relevant for your letter. So what does that mean? You read the task, you work out who you're writing the letter to and what action that person needs to take. You then read the case notes. You understand the key facts about the patient's condition, using the headings and subheadings to guide you. But just because something has a heading or a subheading does not necessarily mean you need to include that information in your letter. That's for you to decide, my friends. Then you identify relevant information and decide if it's highly relevant or even quite relevant. If it is at all relevant, it will go in your letter. If it is not relevant, it will stay out. You know who decides what's relevant? You do. Then the writing time of 40 minutes, you're going to plan out 3, 4, or 5 short paragraphs. That will take around about 5 minutes. There's no template to say a letter has to have this many paragraphs, not at all. 3 or 4 or 5 will do. Then you'll spend 30 to 35 minutes carefully writing your paragraphs. That's where your 180 to 200 words actually counts. We start then with the 5 minutes of reading time. Okay, so when you're reading, you analyze the task, you work out who you're writing it to, you work out what action that person needs to take, you decide what key information they require and what prior knowledge they have of your patient. You'll then look at the case notes and you work out what is relevant, what is repeated, but also relevant, and what is not relevant at all. We make a distinction between relevant and repeated because how many times do you need to know that the person broke their leg in 3 places? How many times do you need to know that they suffered a serious concussion last year? Not to say that the information isn't relevant, it probably is, it could be relevant, but if it's repeated, you don't need to mention it several times, probably. Okay, so there you have. Okay, repeated, relevant, and not relevant at all. This is the task. Please answer these questions. Who am I writing the letter to? What action do I want the reader of the letter to take? What does the reader need to know? And what does the reader already know? I'll see you in a minute. Nice. Okay, who am I writing to then? The allergist, Dr. Robson. What action do I want the reader to take? Allergy testing and identification. What does the reader need to know? Relevant history, current condition, medications, and known triggers, I imagine. And what do they already know? The answer is nothing. They have no prior knowledge. Okay, nice. Now we're going to look at all of the case notes and organize them between relevant, repeated, and relevant to not relevant at all. Before we do that, though, understand how this relates to the marking criteria in the OET writing. For content, to get top marks, you make sure that key information is included and no important detail is missing. And then for conciseness and clarity, you make sure that no irrelevant information has been included. Okay, now it's your time. 5 minutes is what you've got to sort these case notes out between relevant, repeated, and relevant, and not relevant at all. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Good luck. Thanks, everyone. And thank you very much to those of you who decided to share through the chat box. You don't have to, obviously. It's nice to see what your thinking is, though. Now, feel free, obviously, to disagree with my choices. That I encourage dissent. It's good to hear your justifications and for you to see mine. In red, I've got what I consider to be relevant information. Okay, so the name, who they are, history a little bit, a lot about the first presentation, diagnosis, a lot of the plan there with the medicine, quite a bit about the second presentation there on the 14th, and a bit of discussion. And then for repeated information, I filled out a bit of the notes, a bit more on that second visit. I've included the eczema and environmental triggers and so on. You may at this point, just turn my video on there, you may at this point want to include, take that back, not to include anything, to take a screenshot. Then you've got these case notes to refer to later on, and compare the case notes as I've organized them with the letter that I've arranged as well. So you may also now want to ask me some questions about why I did or did not include certain information. I'm happy to answer those questions. But you may not have any questions either, in which case that's fine. But that's how you should treat this 5 minutes of the test. Reading comprehension. You're reading, understanding the case notes, and making your determination as to what is relevant, repeated and relevant, and what you're just going to ignore as irrelevant information for the purposes of this letter. Okay, cool. Seems that everyone is absolutely thrilled with my choices. Let's move forwards then to the next thing, the 40 minutes of writing time. Important to note, everyone, please, to be flexible with the OET. If you have come from another test, I think more specifically the IELTS test, a lot of what they suggest in the IELTS is it's different to what we're doing in the OET. Not to dismiss the IELTS or to denigrate, it's just a different test. Don't sit down to the OET thinking this is, you know, IELTS for doctors. It's not. The approach is different, and the way that you're graded and marked is different as well. No one's telling you how many paragraphs to write. Could be 3, could be 4, could be 5. You could order the information in a different way to another person and get a top mark as well. They could get a top mark, you could get a top mark. So be flexible. Don't write according to some kind of mysterious template. It's relevant to include the oxygen administration in the letter. Why is it relevant to include the low oxygen concentration? Victoria, good question. Let's tell you what, I'll answer that question when it gets to the full letter, and then you can actually see how I've decided which element of the oxygen is important for the recipient of the letter. Something I think about when I look at case notes, and try and remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm an English teacher. I specialize in the OET. My feeling is with everything, with every single thing I include, does including this information enrich the experience of the reader of the letter? If it doesn't, I leave it out. Okay, this is not a test of your abilities to remember. I mean, a lot of you, of course, don't specialize in lung problems, breathing difficulty, and asthma. That's fine. You don't need to be a specialist in any of those things. That's not a point. Point is that you need to realize that this is an English test. This is the occupational English test. It's testing your ability to read, understand, and write in English. For that fact, yeah, please be flexible. We're focusing today only on the other details paragraph. But before we get there, let's talk about planning and writing. You address the recipient following an outline. You then take notes and plan. You'll decide how many paragraphs there will be and what will go into each of those paragraphs. Then when you write, you continually check for the relevance and importance of what you're doing, leaving a few minutes at the end to check your work. All of that is grist to the mill, as it were. Okay, so the letter outline, as promised, is like this. You start with the title and full name of the recipient, and then their job title underneath and full address. You then date the letter according to the date of the test. Don't worry about it, just put the date of the test. Then the salutation, dear Dr. Mr. Mrs. Ms, and their family name, and then the reference line, re, colon, the name of the patient with their title. and their age or their date of birth. Regarding date, doesn't really matter, it's just a small thing. Be consistent on the dates with, I think, especially if you have multiple dates, date of letter, date of birth, date of presentation, date of next visit, date of whatever. So it's nice if there's a consistency to that. So I think that the 8 number date is quite nice, but it's not a rule, it's just a preference for me. You then write the letter. Yours sincerely, if you know the person's name. Yours faithfully, if you don't. So if your letter starts, to whom it may concern, you'll finish the letter, yours faithfully. And then just write the word doctor. That will do, okay? All the information you need for this is in the task. You've now got 90 seconds to write the letter outline. Nice, thank you everyone. Let's have a look then. There it is, the 14th of the 6th, 2019. Then we have Dr. Ian Robson, allergist, Central Hospital, Old Town. Dear Dr. Robson, and then the reference line, Mr. Tom Riddle. Date of birth, 19th of the 5th, 98. Nobody, by the way, has commented on the name of this patient, which should immediately have rung a few bells at least. Write the letter, then yours sincerely, GP. If you put the date above Dr. Ian Robson or below Old Town, it doesn't matter. If you put Dear Dr. Robson above the reference line or below it, it doesn't matter either, okay? This is not where you're going to be failing your test, to be perfectly honest. Just know how it ought to be included. A couple of people, by the way, in the chat mentioned, why didn't you include the smoking and the alcohol? My feeling about habits in terms of social history are, I think it's more important if they do something than if they don't do something. Okay, so he's a non-smoker. Is that information? He's also a non-bungee jumper. Do I need to include that too? I get why. I know why some people would include it. I basically feel the absence of information sometimes can be important, but I think is often not. Anyway, that's just my feeling about it. If you can justify it, you can put it in. I couldn't, so I didn't. And no one mentioned Tom Riddle. Well, I'll leave that question open. If Tom Riddle doesn't evoke anything in you, then fine. Okay, we'll move on to the guts of the letter structure. We're most interested today, of course, in the other details paragraph. We'll get there in a moment, but before we do, I don't think all social information is important. Some of it, only if it's relevant. Planning and checking the case notes. You will decide how many paragraphs are going in the letter, and you will decide what information will go into each paragraph. We're focused today on the other details paragraph, meaning what is the additional information the recipient needs, and you should keep this very brief. Thank you, Victoria, I agree with you. All right. Cool. You've now got 90 seconds to harvest the other details information, brief additional information about Tom Riddle. Very good, very good. Harry Potter reference. Thank you. Finally, somebody has given me the information I require. After you're sincerely just right, Doctor. Doesn't matter. All right? No. So 90 seconds, please. Any other details information. I'll see you in a brilliant. Thank you. This is what I've got. Medical history, childhood asthma, nil episodes, 8 years, no known allergies, eczema flare up, new accommodation, 2 cats, no mattress, sleeps on dusty old carpet. Sounds revolting. Okay, so we're going to write the other details paragraph. Some words that you may want to include in your other details paragraph include, please note, occasional bouts, which has been significant history. They're the notes. You've now got I'll give you a bit more than 3 minutes. It's not a very long paragraph to write your other details paragraph now, okay? I will be quiet and thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts on what should go in the other details paragraph. I'll see you in about 3 minutes. Excellent. A couple of you have shared yours with me. Thank you. Couple have asked about the use of the verb suffering from. The OET aren't crazy on that one. I know that I've heard different explanations. You can suffer from, let me get it. You can suffer from something chronic but not acute. Anyway, look, just avoid it. I think just avoid the word suffering from. You are asthmatic or you have asthma rather than you suffer from asthma. I think that's probably the easiest way of doing it. Let's have a look at my other details paragraph. Please note, his past medical history is significant for childhood asthma, which has been controlled for the last 8 years. He has occasional bouts of eczema, but no known allergies. He has recently moved into new accommodation, which he shares with 2 cats and where he sleeps on the dusty old carpet. The only thing I'd change about that paragraph is that personally, I like the first mention of the patient in every paragraph to be their name. So please note, Mr. Riddle's past medical history is, okay? Otherwise, just use the pronoun he, him, his, and so on. Okay, nice. There's the letter. Somebody, I think Victoria asked a question earlier about why and how I included something earlier or left something out. Okay. And somebody's asked a question also about if somebody has a long list of medication. We did a case like that a week or 2 ago, where there was a very long list of medication. My feeling about that is if it's a really long list of medication and it should be alluded to or included, I would say a complete list of Mr. Smith's medication is attached to this letter. That would be fine. But in this case, I'm not overwhelmed by medication, so I've mentioned it all. You need to consider, do I need to mention quantities of medication? Only if they are going to administer. Okay. Nice. If you've not yet done so, please take a screenshot of this. You'll notice, of course, the introduction is always relatively brief. Who is the patient? What's the main issue? And why am I writing to you? I'm covering that in my introduction. And then my request paragraph is also quite pithy in this one. Sometimes they're quite long, this one relatively short, but that's okay. I would appreciate it if you could assist with Mr. Riddle's allergenic testing and provide guidance on environmental management. Okay? Great, let's move on to the next stage. And that is back to the criteria, specifically language. Now let's address the accuracy of your punctuation. There are 3 key bits of punctuation to use in the OET. I often say to people, look, just avoid unusual punctuation, avoid things like semicolons and slashes and dashes. Full stops, commas, and apostrophes could not be more straightforward. With a full stop, they are, of course, used at the end of a sentence, are at greater risk of infection, full stop, and they're also used in between some abbreviations, I.E. E.G. and ETC. Okay, the comma used in 3 main ways. A pause in a sentence, so after an adverbial like finally, comma, we should write. They're used for listing things, rigidity in the shoulders, comma, forearms, comma, neck and back. Notice after neck, I don't need one. We could have another conversation about Oxford commas, but I don't want to. And then the last one we have, commas are used around a relative clause. Relative clauses are brilliant in your writing. Ms. Price, comma, who has been my patient since 2013, comma, requires 24-hour care. Okay, relative clause, that in that case is non-defining. Can you use a colon after date of birth? Yes, exactly, but that's not really punctuation in the letter, I suppose it is. Yes, all right. After date of birth, colon, fair enough. And then apostrophes. I don't know if any of you are in Australia or thinking of coming to Australia, but if you come to Australia, you should try and forget about how to use apostrophes correctly, because it seems that the nation has lost all sense of how to use apostrophes. Anyway, this is how we use them. Ownership. These are Mr. Davidson's test results. The test results of Mr. Davidson, apostrophe S, test results. I'm looking for the nurses, many nurses, timesheets. After a plural form, apostrophe goes after the noun. one day, perhaps, this nation, this great nation of Australia, has given so much to the world, will remember what apostrophes are and how to use them. For the longest time, my children's school sold meat pie apostrophe S. Daria, I think you're overthinking that. I won't repeat the question, but don't worry. Cool. So there you go. Full stops, commas, and apostrophes. Have a look at these three sentences. Which of the three is punctuated? Take half a minute to. General agreement that it is sentence 3. And it is. Well done. Sentence 3. The patient's test results, comma, which were sent to his GP within 3 days, comma, revealed that the tumor had spread to lungs, comma, lymph nodes, comma, kidneys and brain. Good for you for getting number 3, and bad for the patient for basically dying of cancer. Let's have a look then at the quiz. There it is. 2 minutes. Look at this sentence. Add any punctuation. You may need to be creating new sentences. Who knows? That's your decision. Punctuation in capital letters to make this make sense. Okay? 2 minutes. I'll see you soon. Very good. Thank you. Let's see how you did. Oh, too quick. Mr. Brown, capital M, capital B, was diagnosed with all capitals NIDDM. Notice initialisms are always capitalized in 1999 and has been monitoring his capital B, capital P, and sugar levels at home since then, full stop. Capital H, not H, capital H. He has a strong family history of diabetes and is allergic to penicillin, full stop. Capital H. His weight is steady, brackets, capital B, capital M, capital I, 24, close brackets, comma, and an eye examination in capital O, October 2017, indicated no issues. There you go. Well done. Cool. What to do, where to go, and what to study. Platform is excellent. Log in and see our entire OET course and click on writing. If you have FAQs, you can also ask them of the official OET website. Podcasts for your listening. ABC in Australia, BBC in the United Kingdom, NPR in the US of A, and CBC in Canada. For reading, free, excellent science daily, and also for your listening / reading, tedtalks.com/talks, ted.com/talks. You get a lot out of all of that as well. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me, please do so. Don't forget that we have the Better Together 15 voucher code, which is very good value for money. And if you've got questions, I will happily answer them. A couple of people asked questions about can we mention physical examination results in one sentence? Yeah, if it fits, why not? Why is there a comma before an eye examination? Are we talking about in, let's just go back, we're talking about here. Because, it's because it's not a list, because it's a new clause. That's why, Marla. It is a new clause, that's why we have the comma. Nice. As far as how to request or how to start the introduction, the way to start your letter, I would suggest you start it politely in an active voice. I am writing to refer, for example. That's fine. Just adopt a tone which is first person and active and polite. Same thing generally, I think, in the request paragraph. I think when you adopt a passive voice, when you're asking something of someone, use the active voice. It would be appreciated if you could. Okay? I would be grateful if you could. All right? Nice. Any other questions? If not, we're going to have a cup of tea. Cool. All right, everyone. Oh, hang on a sec. Can you sign your signature if you want to? It makes no difference at all. So yeah, if you're writing to somebody you don't know, dear sir, madam, or to whom it may concern, sign off, yours faithfully. Again, but it doesn't really matter. The OET don't really mind. And frankly, hopefully the damage won't be done before then. But if damage there be done, it won't be by signing off yours faithfully instead of yours sincerely. It would be because your letter, frankly, before that wasn't good enough. That would be why. But yes, get the standard writing form done correctly. That would be good. All right, everyone. Listen, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to go and have my cup of tea. Enjoy the rest of your day. Sleep well if you're on the other side of the world. And I'll see you all next week. Remember, from next week, these sessions start an hour earlier. Okay? Cheerio.